Om Agyanatamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshmalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Didanti Swam Vedantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Patakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagara Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vaishavitam Hey Krishna Karana Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopikanta Tapta Kansha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhana Sutidevi Pranamani Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhi Vacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Namaram Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivasesha Sanyavadi Praskachate Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today, Ramanaumi, the divine appearance of Lord Ramachandra. So Lord Ramachandra is a expansion of Krishna. So he's referred to as a Leela avatar. The word avatar means one who descends. So there's many types of avatars. There are guna avatars, there are Shakti Avesh avatars. His Holiness Ram Govinda Maharaj Ki Jai. There you go. So, avatars. So, Leela avatar, Guna avatar, Purusha avatar, Manvantara avatars, then Yuga avatars. And the avatars of God are like the waves in the ocean. Who amongst us can count the waves in the ocean? None of us. We only know a few. But according to Shastra, Lord Ram is the most important Leela avatar. And according to Tattva, are the same as Krishna. but according to Russ, not quite the same. Shri Shri Radha Radhana Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. So according to Tattva, which means philosophical understanding, Ram, Narayan, Vishnu, Nrsingadev, Balaram, they're the same. But according to Ras, which means something else, there are some differences. So Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. And Ram comes after him. On the other hand, you worship Lord Ramachandra, then you can go back to Godhead and you can become liberated. And there are many devotees, bona fide bhaktas of Lord Ramachandra. Can you name me? Can you give me the names of some? Hanuman, of course, obvious. Hanumanji. So we worship Hanuman as the devotee. We don't worship him as some separate, independent God, like in competition with Ram or Krishna or Narayan. Just like I've been told, elections are coming. And there's going to be competition, isn't there? Competition. So it's not like that. Hanuman is not in competition with Ram. He's clearly the servant. So Hanumanji, anyone else? Sugriva, Jatayu. Jatayu appeared in the form of what? A human being? A bird. So this indicates that you don't necessarily need the human form to become self-realized. Another example is Giriraj Govardhan. We understand Haridas, the best of devotees. But Govardhan is neither bird, nor tree, nor human, but is a rock. But he's described as Haridas, the best of the devotees. So Jatayu appeared in the form of what type of bird? Huh? A vulture. Then I was thinking the other day, what does a vulture eat? Now, does a vulture eat biryani and occasionally, a samosa? I mean, what is the diet of a vulture? Flesh. And yet, he's great devotee, much more advanced than we are. And also Garuda. Garuda is the eagle carrier of Lord Vishnu. So what does Garuda eat?
Snakes.
Huh? Snakes and something fishy. And there's that story when he was eating the fish. And that king of fish became offensive towards Garuda. Or was it the snake? I think that became a Kaliya serpent. Anyhow, so Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur stated, though, the human form of life is the most favorable for God consciousness. Because how many eagles or birds or snakes or cats or dogs do we have here tonight? I don't see, but human beings. So the human form of life really is the most favorable because we have developed consciousness. It's the ego, the dog also has consciousness. The fish also have consciousness. You know, when I was walking in, I went down the bottom, and you see those big fish. What are they? Koi. So I went like this. Now there was nothing in my hand, but the koi immediately opened his mouth because it's used to that. So in other words, it's thinking, it's a little logical, it sees some movement, but his consciousness is very low. But human being consciousness is higher. So if we want, we can inquire into God, the Supreme Being. So Jatayu, Sugriva, Hanuman, I think Bali. There are many great devotees of Lord Ramachandra. So I just read this verse, text 11. This is chapter 10 of Canto 9. It's called The Pastimes of Lord Ram. So the translation, when Ramchandra entered the forest and Lakshman was also absent, the worst of the Rakshasas, Ravana, kidnapped Sita Devi, the daughter of the king of Videha, just as a tiger seizes unprotected sheep when the shepherd is absent. Then Lord Ramachandra wandered in the forest with his brother Lakshman, as if very much distressed due to separation from his wife. Thus he showed by his personal example the condition of a person attached to women. So the point is that God is a person. Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitanam, Eko Bahunam. He's a person, and all of you sitting in front, and everyone here in South Africa, all 60 million of us, we're also persons. But what is the difference between us and God? Very simply, he's the supreme person. So when we look at each other, men, women, we can get a little indication, small indication of God. Like we have male and we have female. And nowadays we have in-betweeners, which we're not allowed to talk about. So I won't. So there is God, the Supreme Purush person, but his expansions, Radharani and Sita. Sita is expansion of Radharani. So we have Sita and we have Ram. And we look in this material world, human beings, we have different color bodies. And they call South Africa the Rainbow Nation. So Ramchandra is greenish in color, but also in the shape of a human being. But it's not that he's in the shape of a human being, but God made man in his own image. So actually we're in the shape of God. It's not that we came first and then we thought, let's have a God and let's vote for a God. And we have feelings, we have sentiments, and we have emotions. Human beings, naturally, we have emotions. We become attached to each other, the husband to the wife to the husband, to the children. We become attached to where we were born. Am I correct? You're born in Chatsworth. in the sevens. So every time you drive past the sevens, right, your hairs stand on end. Right? Some emotion comes. Oh, look. There I was when a kid. I was there, 706. There's Jagu's garage. You know? Emotion, feeling. And some people, they're even willing to fight for their country. And that's what's going on now in different parts of the world. We have in Eastern Europe. It's nationalism. Prabhupada said nationalism is demoniac. It's man-imposed. Can you imagine, a bird? It's flying from, let's say, Russia to Ukraine. It doesn't need a visa or a passport. It doesn't even understand, here's the border. From Zimbabwe to South Africa, there's a river. But human beings have placed these they call these different places. Let me just read a little bit of the purport. So as I was saying, yes, human beings, all of us, we have emotions, we have feelings, we have sentiments, and they're there because they're there in the absolute truth, Atata Brahma Jignasya. They're there in Lord Ramchandra, Lord Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the word Stri Sanginam Gatam Iti indicates that the condition of a person attached to women was shown by the Lord himself. According to moral instructions, when one goes on a tour, one should not bring his wife. Of course, this is the material side of Stri Sangha. But the situation of Lord Ramachandra is spiritual, for he does not belong to the material world. He is not subject to the conditions of the material world. The separation of Lord Ram from Sita is spiritually understood as Vipralamba, which is the activity of the Ladini potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Absolute Truth has these many potencies, Purusha Shakti Vivideya Shruyate. And three primary potencies are Samvit, Samdini, and Hladini. And Samdini means eternality. God is eternal. And we're also eternal because we're the souls within the body. Just temporarily, we happen to be living in South Africa, in Durban perhaps, but it's just a few years. It's really not very long. Even the great Lord Brahma, he's our Sampradaya Acharya. He's the number one in our Guru Parampara. He lives for 311 trillion years. Now, can you even imagine 311 trillion? Can you imagine 311 billion or 311 million? It's like completely, we can't even accommodate it. But he lives for 311 trillion years. And Prabhupada has said, according to the time factor, this is like the bubbles in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if you go down to we'll substitute now, the Indian Ocean, and you look and you see some bubbles, how long do they last for? So you imagine 311 trillion years. This is Brahma's life, and it's like bubbles in the Atlantic Ocean. Prabhupada has written this in the Bhagavad Gita in a purport. So samvit, some eternality. Then samvit means full of knowledge. So we're not full of knowledge. When we're born, we have to learn the English language or whatever country we're in, the French language or something. When we're born, we don't even know who is our father or our mother or our brother. No idea. So we're born into ignorance. So samvit means knowledge, and supreme knowledge means I'm not this body, I'm the soul, and I'm the servant of the supreme soul, who's God. God is a person, and I can have an individual relationship with him. Although there's trillions and trillions, there are more spirit souls than there are grains of dust. There are more souls, we are spirit soul, than there are drops of water in the ocean, than there are grains of sand in the desert. So each one can have an individual relationship, individual, with God, whether it's Nrsimhadev, Ramchandra, or Krishna. And it's very personal. Our relationship with God is very personal. Relationship means personal, isn't it? That's what it means, personal. So we all have that personal relationship with Lord Ram, Sita Ram, Radha and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya. But here comes the problem. We have forgotten it. When you remember it, then you're self-realized. But we've forgotten it. It's there, but it has to be uncovered. We don't have to get it from somewhere, like Checkers or somewhere. It's there already, but it has to be awoken. Like a young 3-year-old or a 2-year-old baby, or let's say a 1-year-old baby. A 1-year-old baby can't walk, but the potency to walk is there. Would you agree? The young daughter, the young son. But it hasn't come out yet. Or another example, the young 4 or 5-year-old child and sex attraction. A 5-year-old child doesn't have any of that sex attraction. There's no, actually, young boys that age don't like girls, isn't it? And the young girls don't like the boys. And they make a point of, if you want to embarrass someone, you call them a sissy or something. But now that same boy or that same girl, when they're 15, then what? It's like a magnet, isn't it? And they weren't taught it. It just came out. So in the same way, one's personal relationship with Sita Ram, Radha and Krishna can come out. And that's called sadhana bhakti. And that's what we're doing. We are practicing sadhana bhakti. Bhakti means to link, to connect. Sadhana means through various rules and regulations. For example, we come in the temple. We leave our shoes outside. Am I correct? That's so they can be stolen. We don't wear our shoes into the temple. Then when we come into the temple, we bow down. Then when the curtains open, we bow down. There's a certain rules. So this is called sadhana bhakti. And by practicing sadhana bhakti, our dormant love for Sita Ram, or Radha and Krishna, or Lakshmi Nrsimhadev, it'll be awoken or awakened. It will come out. So here's this pastime. Oh, that's right, Samvit, Samdini, and then I mentioned Hladini. So Hladini in Sanskrit means the pleasure potency of God. So God is the source of all pleasure. And we are very much interested in this thing called pleasure, happiness. And people look for it in different areas. Pleasure, enjoyment. Some people, they take shelter. The word is ashraya. They take shelter of drugs. And they get some little pleasure from that crack or cocaine. But how long does it last? A few hours. And then also, then you get addicted. And other people will take pleasure, ashraya, from money. That's their meditation. Money, 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 money. And other people will take pleasure from being very fit. So you have these Virgin Active everywhere. As I was driving in, I saw on the corner there one. It looked like they were doing weights and things. So they get some pleasure. And then just to add to their pleasure, when they're bulking up, they have the mirror. And then they go like this, and then they go like this, and then they go like this. And the ladies as much as the men. I have seen this, because they took me to Virgin Active in Johannesburg, and I noted very carefully. The ladies as much as the men. So other people, they take pleasure from votes. And I think we can see with our Mr. Trump, he's really trying to trumpet. And he's interested in the votes by hook or crook. Power. People, they get off on power. One great, he died actually. He was the Henry Kissinger. So he said power is the greatest aphrodisiac. Aphrodisiac means a sexual stimulant. So he said it's the greatest power. So money. So they're chasing after this happiness. But it's all misplaced. Misplaced. We go down to Durban beachfront early in the morning, and on the waves out there are the surfers. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to catch like the ultimate wave. So happiness is a principle, and we should look for it. But you have to look in the right place. And the right place is a relationship with God. Sitaram, Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Nrsimhadev. So here, Hladini Shakti, God's Hladini Shakti, or potency, becomes a person in the form of Radharani or her expansion Sita. So this particular pastime, Sita is spiritually understood as Vipralamba, which is an activity of the Hladini potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, beginning in the Sringara Ras, the mellow of conjugal love in the spiritual world. So again, let's look into the material world. So what is the most intense, absorbing, demanding relationship in this material world? The attraction that a woman has for a man and a man has for a woman. And it's very intense. And I think all of you know about that. And it goes into something called infatuation. Totally infatuated by this particular object. Doesn't last so long, according to my internet. I do look on the internet sometimes. It lasts for usually about 2 years, not very long. So after that, infatuation, and that's called conjugal love. The next most intense one, and sometimes you could say this is even more intense, is the affection the parents have for the child, especially the mother. Would you agree? It's also very, very, it can overtake conjugal love, isn't it? Because man and woman, they meet, and then they fall in love, and then they get married or whatever it is, and they're living for each other, and then along comes a baby, and the baby interferes. It's a third thing, and then the mother's affection goes obviously towards the child because the child is helpless. And we see it in animal species also. So where does this come from? The intelligent person should think, where does this come from? It comes from God. It's there in the spiritual world. So in Vrindavan, Krishna has these relationships. And he has Shringara Ras with the young gopis. And they have spiritual bodies. The bodies don't grow old or get COVID. The bodies are perfect. And then Lord Krishna also has with his parents, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj. Now you could immediately say, well, how can God have parents? But he allows his own devotee to become his parent, and it's called Vatsalya Ras, parental. And we see it in the material world. It's very apparent. And then we have friendship, Sakya Ras, that also goes on in the spiritual world. And we see it here in the material world. We like friends, isn't it? We gravitate towards friends, sajatiya, like-minded people. In the material world, generally friends, they get together and they go and do something sinful together, like get drunk or go fishing. But not always. Sometimes they go off together, Formula One, or play cricket. Ladies also, cricket, big thing now. So friends, we like friends. So where does it come from? It comes from the spiritual world. And Krishna has the friends. Ramchandra doesn't have so much friends. Ramchandra, it's more you're the servant. And Hanuman is the perfect servant with Sugriva, Jatayu, etc. But Lord Ramachandra has parental. It's interesting. It goes from Dasya, skips out the friendship, even Lakshman, not really friend, servant, and then jumps to parental. So Ramchandra had father, Dasarath, and mother. Who was the mother? Who? Kaushalya. And then, from certain points of view, some of the acharyas, Sita and Ramchandra, but many have said actually it was more like Dasyaras, Sita. It's said, one of the acharyas, that Sita only gave garland to Ramchandra twice. How many times the gopis give a garland to Krishna? Hundreds of times every day. But you can understand these things when you become more advanced. But the point is that Sita Ram, they are expansions of Radha and Krishna. And it is completely bona fide to worship Sita Ram. We can just imagine how beautiful is Ramchandra, greenish in color. And he had a Satriya spirit. So Satriyas, they're more grave. They're more stern, stern and grave and sober. Whereas Krishna, he's more like Cupid. So Cupid is more like you make jokes. You pull the ears of the gopis. Now, Ramchandra doesn't do that to Sita. And Sita doesn't do that to Ramchandra. But Radharani sometimes can even pull Krishna's ears if she's a little bit angry. It's called pragalpa, insolent, impudent. Impudent. Anyhow, it's being a little... So we worship Sita Ram, we worship Lakshmi Narayan. Coming up is Nrsimhadev, Lakshmi Nrsimhadev. In Krishna consciousness, one can have affiliation or attachment to any one of these expansions of God. No harm. So here it seems that Ramchandra experienced some vipralamba. So the word vipralamba means separation. So in spiritual life, separation from Ram or Krishna or Guru is actually a personification of Hladini Shakti or pleasure. It's actually pure pleasure. But you might be a little confused. How can separation be pure pleasure? Well, it is. It's pure pleasure. When Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Dwarka, or when Sita is being separated, Krishna and Ramchandra, they're actually experiencing pure pleasure, vipralamba. In the material world, when we're separated from our dear father who died, or our dear mother, or the wife or the child who died, we feel pain. And we get depressed, and sometimes even a little suicidal, isn't it? You just go to a Clara Estates crematorium, and you just look at everyone's face, and you can see. So in the material world, attachment, and therefore separation from a material person is a source of pain. It's very painful. And that's why sometimes people get depressed. They have to go to a trauma specialist. They have to go to a psychologist who sits them down and gives them pills and things. But in the spiritual world, separation, Ram had for Sita, or the gopis had for Krishna, or the sincere disciple has for the guru, it's actually Hladini Shakti, pure pleasure. And I can give you an example. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives the example that sometimes it may snow, or you may go to Himalayas and you see the snow, or the source of the Ganges, and you touch the snow, or you put your hand into that cold water that's coming from the source of the Ganges, and it's biting. It bites, and it seems hot. Now, I know this because I was brought up and lived for 20 years in England, and every winter it snowed. And every winter I would go out and build a snowman. And then I would make snowballs, and I would throw them, especially at my brother. And after a while, your hand goes numb, and then it starts to burn. But the snow is cold, but it's burning. So this is an example that separation in the spiritual world is actually the highest enjoyment. Hladini Shakti. And for us to be separated, to feel separation or vipralamba, it's just this one word, vipralamba, but there's kinchidura vipralamba, the sudura pravas, so many different types of separation. It gives one the highest pleasure, the highest enjoyment, the highest bliss. So for us to have this towards Ramchandra or Krishna or Lord Chaitanya, that is actually for more advanced devotees. But we can have it to a certain degree towards Guru. So you start with Guru, bona fide Guru, Diksha Guru or Siksha Guru. Doesn't necessarily have to be Diksha Guru. And attachment. And then you feel some little separation. And that introduces you to feeling some separation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktivinoda, the six Goswamis, Rupa and Raghunath, Lord Chaitanya, and then finally Radha and Krishna or Sita and Ram, as in the case of Murari Gupta, great devotee of Sita and Ram. So one starts with a guru. But guru has to be guru. Got to be bona fide, obviously, in disciple succession. And to begin with, your feelings may be a little mixed. A little sentimental, but also some purity is there also, something spiritual. Then gradually the sentiment or the sentimental side falls away as you advance, and it becomes more spiritual or pure towards Guru, and then Param Guru, Siksha Guru, and then our line, Bhaktisiddhanta, Gokishore, Bhaktivinoda, Narottam, and it goes all the way up to the six Goswamis. This is why Krishna's Kaviraj, he ends every chapter in the Chaitanya Charitamrita by praising, glorifying Rupa and Raghunath. Rupa and Raghunath. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then when one's attachment to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mature, Radha and Krishna. If relationship with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Advaita Gadara, if it's not proper, if it's not really mature, like a mango, it's got to be mature, then it can only go to Radha and Krishna. And Radha and Krishna's associates. And they have unlimited associates. Rupa Goswami gives us information, Nishamya Gitam Tadananga Vadanam, that when Krishna played his flute on the bank of the river Jamuna, chapter 4, text 1, Ujjvala Nilamani, 1 billion gopis came. They heard the sound. Wherever they were, they heard it, because it's a spiritual sound, the flute. And they came running. Nisamya Gitam Tad Ananga Vadanam. Ananga. They became saturated with thoughts of Cupid. Ananga. Ananga, Cupid. Vadanam means to nourish. Govadan. Vadanam means to nourish. And they ran to where Krishna was. And Rupa Goswami says, Sata Koti. So you tell me now, Sata? What's Sata? 100. In Indian, 100. And what's Koti? Koti. A lakh is 100,000. Koti, add 2 noughts, 10 million. 10 million times 100, 1 billion. 1 billion gopis came in spiritual bodies because Krishna played his flute. And then Krishna expanded himself 1 billion times. Not bad, huh? I mean, how many times can you expand yourself? We're not even up to twice. It would be very useful. We could be here, and we could also be New Jagannath Puri. Twice. But we can't even do it twice. So Krishna expanded himself 1 billion times. And then it's further described that of those 1 billion gopis, 10 million were in Radharani's group. In other words, followers. Like we're in a group. We're followers of Prabhupada. And 10 million were in Chandavali's group. Now that's another group, a different group. But the whole purpose was to please Krishna. So I did some maths. I'm not that smart. But 10 million plus 10 million is how much? 20 million. And 20 million minus 1 billion is 980 million gopis in other groups. So I was thinking, what other groups are these? This is how many groups there are up there. So many groups. Yuktishwaris, and they all have their leaders. So we're particularly interested in following Rupa and Raghunath, which means in Radharani's group. This is our particular mood, and we understand the mood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Gokishore, Bhaktivinoda, and Prabhupada. But it doesn't have to be like that, because you could be following Murari Gupta, who's not even in Vrindavan mood. He's in Ayodhya. He's a Ram fan. Or you could be Srivas. Who's Srivas? Narada Muni entered into Srivas. Srivas is interested in Vaikuntha, Lakshmi Narayan. He gives the greatest of respect to Vrindavan and Dwarka and Ayodhya. Bows down millions of times, but he doesn't want that. He wants a Vaikuntha, Srivas. Narada Muni entered into him. But then I also found out that Narada Muni is an expansion of Madhu Mangal. Some or other, there is some Madhu Mangal personality in Narada Muni. And who's Madhu Mangal? He's your Vrindavan man who likes to eat laddu. Yeah. So it's interesting. So today we worship Sita, Ram, Lakshmana, Hanuman as bona fide expansion of Krishna. Sita, very beautiful. She's the entrapped Ramchandra's mind, and she's expansion of Radharani, and will have the same qualities, but not to 100%. When I drove today, I saw the moon, but not the full moon. I don't know, about half a moon. So the full moon is there. I just couldn't see it. It's there. So we see in Sita Devi, it's not completely, she has all the moods of Radharani. For example, Radharani sometimes would become a little angry. It's called Vama. And anger with a reason, hetu, and without, ahetu. And there's Udatta man and Lalita man, all these different types. And therefore sometimes she would pull Krishna's ear, or she would bind him with a flower garland, or she would ignore him. So we can't see or imagine Sita doing the same. Can you think, would Sita do that? If Ramchandra spoke to her, you think Sita would just turn her head, look the other way, pretend she didn't hear, pull Ramchandra's earlobe? So you see different mood. But still, Sita is worshipable. And those persons who are attracted towards the worship of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, this is the right path. And then continue your devotional service, chanting Hare Krishna, serving in this parampara, and you will get that. If that's what you want, that's what you will achieve. And the same with Lakshmi Nrsimhadev or Lakshmi Narayan. Yeah. So thank you very much. It's very nice to see so many Vaishnavas. And we pray to Sita Ram that we can have their mercy, which they're willing to give. And they're already giving. The very fact that you're sitting here means you're the recipient of tremendous mercy. And this mercy will extend to you and your past family members, many generations going backwards, and many generations actually going forward. This mercy will come, Kripa. So you are Kripa Patra. You are the object of so much mercy already. So please continue appreciating this. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Shishi Radha Radhanath ki jai. Gau Premanandi. Would you like to ask any questions or add anything? Nothing? So you might think we're in the Hare Krishna movement, and this is not the Hare Rama movement. And Prabhupada installed Radha Krishna, and not many Sita Ram. And it's always Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So what if you have affiliation or feeling, or perhaps an eternal relationship with Ram? What happens to you? So you continue in this mission, worshipping Krishna and hearing Hare Katha. And then when you become more advanced, especially on the stage of Ruchi, your natural attraction will go to Sita Ram. Everything will be Sita Ram. And then on Ashakti, even more, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram. It'll just happen naturally. So you don't have to worry. You may have some inclination towards Lakshmi Nrsimha. It'll come out later. But we're still on foundational. We're still like foundational. You could say ABC. Some of us may be ABCD. Very, very few ABCDE. So it'll come out naturally. Would you like to add anything or make a comment? Nothing? So, thank you very much. I would assume we've already sung Sita Ram, Lakshman Hanuman, the song, Raghupati Raghava. But if someone can, out of respect, and I won't sing.